Shalom, friend of God. Welcome to day 5. Topic: Satan and God's law. At some point after Satan was created, he developed a hatred for God and his law when he was chief angel in heaven. He claimed that God's law was not a loving God and was not interested in the happiness of his created beings. Prior to Satan's rebellion, he accused that the law of God was not worthy, and God was not worthy to be respected and worshipped. He was so effective at presenting God and his law in a negative light that 1/3 of the heavenly host believed him and rebelled against God. In Revelation 12, verse 7 to 9, I read, "And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought, and his angels, and prevailed not. Neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceived the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him." And if we go back to Revelation 12, verse 4, "And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven and did cast them to earth." The prophet Isaiah reveals more about Lucifer's conflict with God in Isaiah 14, verse 12 to 14. "How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thy heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the height of the clouds, and I will be like the Most High." So Lucifer's sin was a sin of pride, which led him to seek to exalt himself above the Most High God, to have authority above God, authority in God's law. So as you study these verses, it becomes very clear what the issue at the heart of Lucifer's war against God was all about. Because when you see words such as iniquity and sin used to describe his rebellion, it becomes clear what Lucifer's rebellion was really about. John also tells us in 1 John 3 verse 4, I read, "Whosoever committeth sin transgresseth also the law. For sin is the transgression of the law." You see, as we compare these scriptures, we discover that the controversy or war in heaven between Lucifer and Christ was over the law of God, which actually finally defines what sin is. Because in creation, in the beginning of creation, after or before the law was provided, there was no clear definition of what sin was. And the Ten Commandments breaks it down and define what sin is. And you may ask, what laws define sin? Apostle Paul tells us in Romans 7 verse 7. I read, what shall we say then? Is the law of sin? God forbid. Nay, I had not known sin but by the law. For I had not known lust, except the law had said, thou shalt not covet. So you see, it was the 10th commandment that revealed what sin was to Apostle Paul. And this verse we just read makes it very clear that God's eternal law that defines sin is the 10th commandment. Yes. So Lucifer's, or you might call him Satan, war in heaven was over the 10 commandments, which he refused to accept and follow, which led him to rebel against God and his authority. But I believe from the very beginning of the great war in heaven, it has always been Satan's purpose to overthrow God and the law. Yeah. And the 1/3 that joined him has always been a hater too. Even though he was cast out of heaven, he has continued the same warfare here upon the earth. Yes, Satan's rebellion against God's law has continued down through ages. Either he leads men to change the law, who might believe obedience to the law is no longer required. Yes. Or believe the law cannot be kept. Yeah. So he leads us to believe that the law is so hard to be kept. Also, through prophet Daniel, God foretold an earthly power inspired by Satan that would think to change time and the laws. You will read this in Daniel 7, verse 25. In its rebellion against God. But history also reveals to us that the apostate Roman Catholic Church, led by Constantine the Great, tried to change time, tried to change the day of worship, which was the 4th commandment. Satan has also led the same apostate earthly power to omit the 2nd commandment. Yeah. The commandment which forbids the worship of God through idols and image. Yeah. So it was kind of sad to come back from U.S. to Africa and you see this white picture of this Caucasian, what's his name? Caesar Borgia, painted as Christ. And most churches that I see that have that, I don't even walk into that because it's so scary. So you see that picture blasted everywhere depicting the man, the Son of God, Christ. Or symbols of crosses everywhere. It's still an idol and it's still an image. But anyway, in order to have the 10 commandments, The Ten Commandments, which forbids coveting, is divided into two commandments on coveting. We will also study that in the days to come. So yes, in the last days, Satan will seek to lead the entire world to rebel against God's law. He will use deceptive teachings, deceptive miracles, and finally, prosecution of those who refuse to follow his rebellion. You can also find this when you read Revelation 12, verse 17, Revelation 16, verse 13 and 14, Revelation 13, verse 15 to 17. It's very sad, but true. Majority of people will join Satan in his rebellion against God's truth and law. Yeah. So Apostle Paul also describes why many are susceptible to Satan's deception. You will read that in 2 Thessalonians 2, verse 10 to 12. I read, with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they received not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this cause God shall send them to strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, that they all might be damned, who believed not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. Because God's law defines righteousness. So, therefore, those having pleasure in unrighteousness have pleasure in breaking God's law. Yes, you do. Oh, yes, we did. So, we discover from God's prophetic word that the rebellion led by Satan in heaven will be carried out through the history of planet Earth down to the last days. At the end of the time, there will be two groups of people on this earth. Those who obey God's law and those who do not. Apostle Paul also described both groups having just before Jesus Christ returned with this word. I will read it in Revelation 2, verse 11 to 12. He that is unjust, let him be unjust. He which is filthy, let him be filthy. Filthy still. And he that is righteous, let him be righteous still. And he that is holy, let him be holy still. And behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me to give every man according to the work shall be. Thank you for joining me today on day 5. I will see you tomorrow, day 6. Thank you, and comment in this section the answers to the questions that I will leave below.